If Power Rangers ended here, I would have been satisfied. Hi everyone and welcome to Ranger Rants. As always, I'm Archer9234. Today I'll be discussing the originally planned series finale from MMPR, Doomsday Part 1. Now, Doomsday 1 and 2 are particularly special episodes. Back when Haim Saban was trying to get a network to buy the show, no one had ever thought of the series was ever going to be this massive hit it was back in 1993. So the series was originally greenlit for 40 episodes and that's it. It would have been thrown under the rug really fast. Since the series relies heavily on Super Sentai footage, it has positives and negatives. It makes it cheaper and a lot faster to film episodes. The crew and cast can knock 4 episodes down in a few days, but thanks to this speed, they had already written and planned out the show's finale, which Doomsday was supposed to be. Now, the plot and some of the main story elements are adapted from episode 47 through 50 of Zyuranger. Break in the final deciding battle. It feels like a real final battle for the series. We have a much bigger threat with Rita coming to Earth, and all the people who were waiting to see the Power Rangers are taken captive. Over the years, a few rumors have also cropped up about this two-parter. If the show had ended here, people have said that they would have flown Machiko Soga, the actress who plays Bandora, to America to shoot the ending of the series. It would have taken place at the Juice Bar, and the Rangers would have sealed her away in the dumpster, similar to how Zyuranger ended the season. I personally don't believe these rumors. MMPR was made on such a small budget, it wouldn't really allow an actress like Soga to be flown to America. Granted, paying for Ju 1.5 footage for the season is expensive, but a lot cheaper to do when the sets and actors still exist. Now, the first part begins where we find out that the mayor of the city wants to congratulate the Power Rangers on protecting the city for the past year, so the team was really happy that the city was throwing them a party. I personally always thought that the Rangers should have been somewhat bummed. I know it's a cool moment for them to finally get appreciation from the city, but in the end, no one would have known who they were. I would have felt gypped. Now, normally I always love Bulk and Skull's stupidity and fun moments that are sprinkled throughout the episodes. Some ideas and plans they thought up are usually really dumb, but the one done for this episode, I just hate. Their plan is to dress up as really bad superheroes, go onto the stage, and try to convince a huge crowd they have special powers. This idea fails in so many places. Back to Rita, we find out her latest plan is to create a new special Zord called Cyclopsis that Goldar is going to personally pilot to stop the Rangers. This plan is one of Rita's most deadliest plans against the Rangers and requires her to actually move her moon base to Earth. This in return also amplifies her magic powers, which is an interesting story idea that the writers came up with. In Zyurangers, the story follows a similar path, but does have some big key differences. Originally, Bandora was past the point of dealing with the Zyurangers always winning, so she decided to ask the help of Satan. Satan is the character she summons at the end of Doomsday called Lokar. Now, Goldar didn't pilot Cyclopsis at all, which would make sense. He can grow big. Why would he use a Zord? Cyclopsis was actually piloted by Bandora's own son and 4 other kids. This caused a lot of editing issues for the MMPR team, which is why not a lot of Rita's palace footage was used. While the people gathered in the park for the special Power Ranger event, these really fun scenes also gave you a clue of the series finale as well. We get to see almost all of the major guest actors together with a huge crowd. You wouldn't do that for any ordinary episode. The park scene does have issues. This scene is the easiest place to spot Walter Jones' missing finger. Since it's nice and bright, it pops up a lot. Jones always tried to keep it hidden throughout the series, all the way up to him leaving the show, which is why you see Zach usually having one hand in a fist most of the time. A personal complaint I have is the big Ranger poster on the stage. I hate it. If you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. It's a photo taken from the moment when the Rangers are blasting an enemy with the power blaster. That would mean some poor camera guy was in the line of fire when taking the photo. The Rangers aren't going to pose for photos in that type of situation. They should have taken a new photo for the scene. MMPR does have their own suits. It shouldn't have been that expensive to do. Now, when Bulk and Skull dressed up and got on that stage, I personally thought the writers had crossed the line with those two stupidity. There was nothing they could have done that would have made anyone believe anything. I was 7 when this aired, and I was face-palming this moment. It would have been better if Bulk and Skull had made the stage fall down or something. That I could believe. After Rita had abducted all the people at the park, the Rangers found out that Rita herself and the Moon Palace came to Earth. In Zyuranger, this was more common. Bandora did this during the pilot in a more dramatic fashion by physically moving the buildings around to form like a sort of castle wall around the palace. She was mainly there to guide her son and deal with Satan and the Zyurangers personally. Now for the Megazord battle with Cyclopsis. This fight was actually trimmed in some places and extended in others, since this fight is actually separated across 4 episodes. From the beginning of the fight, Satan was already present and was aiding out Bandora's son. This is the reason why some of the footage in MMPR is either repeated a few times or when Rita's staff beam changes into lightning bolts. There's also some continuity issues that pop up, especially when the Dragon Zord comes in. Smoke damage appears and disappears on him randomly. Since Cyclopsis' power has been increased tenfold, the Megazord was easily outmatched, which forced Jason to call the Dragon Zord. Now, when Jason orders everyone to form Dragon Zord battle mode, we see the Tyrannosaurus was also in the fight helping out. But where was the Pterodactyl? This happened a lot in Zord fights. Most of the time it's forgotten. It's worse in Zyuranger since this was a combination of 4 episodes. It was missing for a huge chunk. Eventually, Zordon calls Titanus personally to the scene in order to form Ultra Zord. In some versions of this episode, Zordon's line is removed. I have no explanation of why. Maybe the writers felt it was out of character. Zordon usually doesn't tell Rangers what to do during fights, but since they were locked in with the footage from Zyuranger, they had to use Zordon. In Zyurangers, all the Zords are living gods in a basic manner and have minds of their own, which is why King Brachion rushed in to help. Also, King Brachion was the primary target of these final episodes. In Zyuranger's story, King Brachion was guarding special dinosaur eggs from Bandora. Satan and her had to destroy them at all costs, so they were using Daijujin and Dragon Caesar to trick King Brachion out of hiding. Thanks to the Ultra Zord combination, they were easily able to stop Cyclopsis for the first time. Goldar's bailing footage will be again repeated in part 2. But at the last minute, we finally get introduced to Rita's trump card, Lokar. With this combined power with Rita, he revives Cyclopsis, and they were easily able to destroy Titanus, so they could no longer form Ultra Zord. Now, if you freeze frame it while Titanus is sinking into the ground, the show is actually using the Bandai Japan toy for some shots. The reason why this happened was because the studio model doesn't actually have any movements, and is the size of one of the buildings, which makes it impossible for them to bury it. Now, this scene is screwed up in part 2 when they later on magically restored Titanus out of nowhere, even though Billy clearly says Titanus is gone. This happened because in Zyurangers, King Brachion wasn't really lost. He was sealed away with powerful magic and was revived by the help of the special dino eggs he was guarding. So this is the cause of the confusion in the moment in part 2. Overall, I have to give this episode a perfect score of 5 out of 5. I always love this episode. Rita raised the bar on the Rangers for a while. Rita and all the others were looking less menacing after all the defeats. They were becoming too comical, always with the headaches. Squad and Bamboo would always be stupid. Goldar and Scorpina always lost fights. It also showed that the Zords are not invincible. The only other time we ever saw the Zords outmatched was in the Green with Evil arc. As for Zyurangers, what I'm about to tell you is a major spoiler, so if you don't want to know this, please skip this part. In these final 4 episodes, we finally figure out why Bandora has been trying to steal kids and has this huge resentment on the Zyurangers and Barza. Her son was killed by a dinosaur. Bandora was actually a nice person thousands of years ago at the beginning, but when a dino stepped on her son by accident, mind you, she started this war against Barza, the Beast Gods, and the Zyuranger clan leaders, and personally made Geki suffer from Borai's death. That's the reason why Bandora has been out to kill Geki and the other Zyurangers for the entire season. Now that you heard my thoughts on this episode, here are some of yours. As always, leave a suggestion below on what future episode you would like reviewed, and leave a review comment for the next Ranger Rant episode. I'll pick the 5 best ones, and we'll feature them in the next episode. For next week's episode, I'll be discussing the second part of Doomsday from MMPR Season 1. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys right back here next week. Hi everyone and welcome to Ranger Rant. As always, I'm Archer9234. Today I'll be discussing the originally planned series finale from MMPR, Doomsday I said that bad. We have a much bigger threat with Rita coming to Earth, and all the people are waiting to... I know it's a cool moment for them to finally get appreciation. Now, Goldar didn't pilot Cyclopsis, that's all. Yeah, thank you, plane. A personal complaint I have is the big Ranger poster on the stage. I hated it. If you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. It's a photo taken from the moment when the Rangers are blasting and emanating. Now for the Megazord battle with Cyclops. As always, leave a suggestion below on what future episode you would like be. Now, before I go, I want to bring up some complaints that people have been giving me for the past year on the Ranger Rants series. Now, to be honest, in the beginning of the Ranger Rants series, it was boring, it was horrible. I particularly never liked the way I did it. Originally, what I did in the beginning of Ranger Rants, I had watched the episode, wrote notes down, had the notes down, and just winged it in front of the camera. The reason why I did it this way was because I really don't have a lot of time to film these things, so I thought it would be quicker just to do it that way. But in the end, it made the episodes extremely boring, redundant. I had to actually edit around multiple things. For example, you may see an episode for 15 minutes, but in reality, I was filming it for over 45 minutes and sometimes even up to an hour. Now, at the beginning of season 4, I changed the format of the show and I basically write a script. That's the reason why if you see my eye line, I'm looking down, because the script is down below underneath the camera's lens. Now, the thing that people bring up is that, well, how come you can't raise the script any higher? In reality, the script is high as I can go. It's actually 1 inch behind the frame. If I zoom out, you can actually see the script is right here. There's really no place that I can actually put the script anywhere else. The only other option I would have is to buy a teleprompter. But unfortunately, a teleprompter costs $1,000. So unfortunately, that's not really an option for me. Now, another complaint I get is the 3 camera angles. I have a camera angle for this camera, the camera on my left, and a camera on my right. Now, the reason why I do this is for editing purposes. A lot of times people complain that, why do you cut between all these camera angles so much? That's the reason why. A couple of you will probably say, well, why don't you just simply crossfade between the cuts? If you look at the very first rant episode, I actually do that, but it's more jarring to watch it that way than just simply watch the cuts. Nowadays, thanks to the script, I do less mistakes. It's a lot easier to work on the show because I have a coherent script in front of me so I can follow everything pretty well. And the older times, it was much, much more harder to edit because I was, thinking up as I go. It just made it much more harder. So at least now, it's a little bit easier on your eyes when I have to cut between the 2 camera angles. Now, another thing that people complain about is that why don't I show footage from the actual episode? I have a couple of reasons why I don't do that. One is because originally, before we had the DVD sets, there was no high quality version of the episodes I can actually go back to. While this show was shot in 1080p, and if I actually use footage from a TV rip or a VHS recording I have on my tapes and transfer it to the computer, it would look absolutely abysmal and you couldn't really see anything. Another reason why I don't do this is because of dealing with YouTube's content ID system. Unfortunately, it's half the time it's crap, it's automated, and a lot of times it doesn't understand the use of fair use. While legally I can use small clips of footage of the episode I discussed because that falls under fair use. But I don't want to deal with YouTube flagging my video or the company flagging my video. Then it's pulled down. I have to deal with disputing it. It could take a week. It could take 2 weeks. The video's down. It's a whole bunch of time wasted that I don't have. I have 4 shows that I run on YouTube: the rants, the reviews, the audio commentaries, and the specials. All those take a lot amount of time. On an average, I take around 40 hours of work to run on YouTube, while I have other responsibilities in my life to deal with as well. So most of the time, by the time I get to rants and reviews, I'm exhausted, I'm tired. So sometimes when I'm doing rants or reviews, you see that I'm actually exhausted. So I hope these explanations give you a better understanding of what I go through in order to do these episodes, and the reason why I cut between multiple camera angles, and why I don't show footage, and why my eyeline is different.